Thanks for being here today. I assume that there'll be some other people, at least in my world, coming from other virtual meetings. There might be some other people that sprinkle in a little bit later on, but welcome to those of you who are here. I'm Sarah Stahl-Magera. I am hopefully, obviously, a worker owner of our new Improved Group cooperative. And I'm also a director of consulting and the incoming board president for our new cooperative. So very exciting to have all these different roles. I am joined today by several of my colleagues, many of whom are also board members, some of whom have been deeply involved in the process of getting us to where we are today of having converted to a co-op model. And so we're looking forward to having a conversation with you. We kind of created this town hall format mostly so that we could just create space for those of you who are interested in talking to us about what has happened for the Improved Group. We prepared a little bit of kind of in anticipation, perhaps, of some questions that you might have about the co-op conversion and where we are. A few of us have some thoughts we figured we could share with you, but we are really mostly hoping that today would be our time would be able to answer questions or hear your kind of comments and kind of find out why you're here. With that, I'll take a minute to just have my Improved Group colleagues say their name and just introduce themselves. Dan, how about you go ahead?
Hey all, my name is Dan Goldstein, a worker owner and board member on the new Improved Group co-op. Just a quick logistics thing. I posted something in the chat, but I'll be playing kind of the tech support role today. So if you're having any issues, feel free to message me directly. And feel free to, we'll have some open time for questions later. If you want to put questions in the chat, you're welcome to. Otherwise, when we open it up, you're also welcome to come off mute and voice your questions as well. But looking forward to hearing from everybody today. And I'll pass it on to Jessica.
Hi there. I am Jessica Schutz, worker owner, as well as board member. Thank you for joining us today. Appreciate it.
Maria, go ahead.
Great. I'm Maria Moeller, also worker owner and playing a role in the management team. And as you might hear about, we had a transition team that helped kind of frame up what this co-op looks like. So I was also on that. So really excited to finally be here today and share with you and hear your questions.
Courtney.
Hi, everyone. I'm Courtney Klingon, worker owner and board member. Excited to see you all here.
Becky.
Hi, everyone. Good to see you all. Becky Stewart. Have had similar roles as Maria in this. So I'm on the management team and was also on the transition team for helping with the conversion to a co-op. So looking forward to the time today.
Catherine.
Hi, I'm Catherine Lim. I'm a writer at the Improved Group on our marketing team, and I also served on the transition team over the past couple of years. I'm a worker owner.
Carissa, I'm not sure if you're able to introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. Carissa Prepson. I am a senior consultant at the Improved Group.
And Trinity.
Hi, everybody. I'm Trinity. I'm an associate consultant, and I am also a worker owner, and I'm excited to be here.
Thanks. All right. Well, without further ado, I'll just share a little bit about how we kind of got to where we are today. So how did we decide on a cooperative? It feels like many years ago. I don't know exactly how many, frankly. Leah Goldstein Moses, who was the founder of the Improved Group and until last year was the CEO, the company. Leah kind of catalyzed or jump-started this process by kind of thinking about what her long-term plans for the company was. And so she gathered a group of employees together in thinking about, what could our future look like when she decided to step down from the CEO and potentially the owner role. It was through that kind of group process that we kind of found or stumbled upon the cooperative worker-owner cooperative model, and saw that the main benefits of a cooperative really felt aligned to what we were looking for. So some of the benefits or kind of alignment areas was this shared leadership model. We can talk, if anyone is interested, we can talk a little bit about the organizational structure that we've been working on for several years now, called TEAL. And in which sort of all across the organization, we all have a leadership role to play in making decisions. So cooperative, kind of the member-owned cooperative, which is one member, one vote, kind of aligned with that sense of kind of ownership and decision-making. Another benefit is kind of our desire to advance equity and kind of equality across our member owners or our employees, members in a cooperative model, profit share. And so all of us who are member owners get to kind of share in those the profits that we make as a company, and have found and have learned through this process too that as a cooperatives tend to be really stable and successful businesses because of the investment that employees have in the stake and the outcomes of the business. So that kind of intent to continue to create a really successful and stable business was really important to the employees and to Leah as well in thinking about what our next future was. It also allowed us to, again, kind of continue with having control over the culture of IG and being able to continue on our path of being this teal organization and I think really supporting one another in the work that we do and in our kind of vision for how we serve our mission, how we serve our community through our work. With that, I think those were kind of like some of the big sort of selling points for us, I guess, in the cooperative model. I will kind of hand it over to Catherine to talk a little bit more about some of maybe the specific processes that we went through in the past. We decided that we wanted to become a co-op.
Sarah, I'm going to share a little bit about the past couple of years, what that has looked like. And I just have to say, preparing for sharing this, it's just so exciting to be at this point. Just so much work from so many folks at IG and our consultants went into this. So just really happy that you all are here to share in that. So after, as Sarah described, the decision was made and the feasibility analysis was done that we could be a co-op. We, this team, you've heard about the transition team, was a group of 5 or 6 staff that took on the work of learning a lot about co-ops and business finance and a lot of things, and designing both how our current processes would change. A lot of times they don't, but where they do need to change as a co-op, and then what new elements we had to design, such as the board of directors, the membership meetings, who can become a member, that kind of thing. So we worked with Nexus community partners locally and Project Equity on that with their expertise in co-ops. A big kind of culmination of all that design work was writing our bylaws. I don't think our team member Kia is here, but Kia, I joke that she has her law degree now because she took that on. And a lot of that was around ensuring that our bylaws, our new document, reflect our values and what we already were doing. That was really being like a co-op. So, for example, we designed really inclusive membership criteria, and in terms of the bylaws around How can you put an item on the agenda for the board meeting or the membership meeting? We just really made it very as inclusive as we could for not only worker owners, but also staff that choose not to be worker owners too. Next, we are kind of alongside that. We worked out our financing. We got a loan from Shared Capital, which itself is a co-op, and went through negotiations with Leah to buy IG from her. And then along the way, we and the transition team were, with our external consultants, were educating all IG staff over the whole 2 years, really with the idea that once we get to the point of us all deciding whether to be worker owners, that folks have a lot of knowledge, because it's not only a lot of information and knowledge around how it works, it's also, I found, like a mindset shift around being an owner and what does that really mean. And so there's a lot of education and discussion about what that looks like, and clearing up concerns, or just talking about things that we would figure out together now that we're co-op. Yeah, provided that education, and we're really happy to say that almost all of our staff members are now worker owners. Looking ahead, we are transitioning now. A firm called Collectivity is going to be working with us in this next phase to, I think Sarah can correct me if I'm wrong, but do like board training and be at our first membership meeting to really just be alongside us with that expertise in our first year as a co-op, as we're doing a lot of things for the first time. Oh, hey, Katie. I look forward to working with you. I'll pass it over to Becky now about what is and isn't changing for folks that work with us.
Yeah, I think the short answer for folks who work with us is not much is changing. We're still doing business as the Improve group. We had a brief moment where we wondered if we should finally just change the Improv group and be over the hump of having to continually disappoint people that they actually have hired evaluators and not an improv troupe. But we still the Improve group. We have still the same business model, so the same no changes to kind of our billing structure or rates or how we work on our projects and teams. I think, we've always had a lot of times when we were learning about co-ops, they would say, one of the benefits is that people have a really high sense of responsibility about their work as worker owners. And I have to say that I think that's been really true of IGers throughout my almost 20 years at IG, that people have a really high sense of responsibility about their work and commitment to the impact of our work. And so maybe there's an even higher level of that. We'll find out, but that's been at such a high level. I don't know that I anticipate a lot of change there. At the same time, as I was thinking about that, I'm like, well, IG is always in a place of evolving and growing. So I am excited for the next chapter. We've been doing a lot of evolving and growing in recent years, thinking about how evaluation and our work and our role can contribute to greater equity in the world and the communities in which we work. And so that's going to be a continued journey and learning and commitment for us. The kind of teal Sarah mentioned earlier, the way our organization works in terms of teal processes, that shows up in our external work too, in terms of people have been and will continue to get on project teams by voicing their interest in the project, by showing that seeing that alignment with where they want to be learning, growing, and exercising their skills and expertise, and are interested in the content. So that will also continue to be present in our work. So not much is changing except for the regular old change that is always happening at IG, which is us growing and learning and evolving and kind of continually improving. So that is the short answer to how things will look differently or not externally in our work. Maria, do you want to go ahead for internal?
Absolutely. Thanks, Becky. Yeah, so it's a little bit of a broken record. So I'm meant to kind of cover what's going to change internally. And as several folks have mentioned, we have been in an evolution towards kind of what a co-op means through other processes in the organization. So a lot of the things that are classical to a co-op were things that we were already doing internally. And so a lot will stay the same. So, as Becky mentioned, our business model, the way that we're organized, a high degree of input on decision making and employee engagement. The management team has been in place for several years and will continue to be in place and remain kind of responsible for the daily operations of the organization. But that actually is a cue to one tangible thing that has changed and will be different for us, is that we now have a governing board of directors, which is made up by worker owners. So as Sarah mentioned, she is the board president. We have several of the board members here with us today. And so that's something new for us, that we now have a official governing body. And so they will be, as a typical board of directors, kind of doing the oversight of the organization. And it, again, will be made up of all worker owners. No external folks will be on that board. And then the other, I think, change internally that is kind of more tangible, but maybe just a little bit of more of an evolution of where we've been, is that worker owners now will have more explicit decision-making authority through a vote. So as Sarah mentioned, one worker owner equals one vote, and we have tended to be making decisions on a lot of things, and will continue to do it in large part through a highly engaged process with the teal model, which is called advice seeking, typically, where you're seeking input from people who either have expertise or will be impact around the decision. And so we'll continue that, but there will be some specific topics where we will have a vote. And two that we know for sure are electing our board members, that worker owners will have a vote on electing the board members. And the other is approving the budget. So right now we have a pretty highly participatory process for looking at our budget each year, but this year we'll add on the new step of both the board approving the budget and then taking it to the worker owners for final approval. So in one way, it feels very much the same. In another way, it is a very tangible difference, and really is more explicit about the authority and kind of decision-making authority that worker owners have. So that is really, again, very similar to what folks have been saying. Not a whole lot changing, but a few things that will look a little bit different for us internally.
Thanks, Maria. Well, with that, we invite whatever is on your mind, town hall format.
Hi there, my name is Rachel. I just had one question about how the board will work, just as far as if the board members are also worker owners, how does that work? Are they elected, and how are decisions made? And just kind of giving some more detail about that.
Thanks, and hi, Rachel. Good to see you. I can take a first attempt, and then if anyone else wants to add on. Board members are employees. So kind of, for example, me, just as a recap, myself, Dan, Jessica, and Courtney are some, but not all of our board members. We are all employees. We will continue to have our kind of regular duties in our specific positions and roles. That will be a little bit something that we navigate this year, is like thinking about how we kind of fit in the added responsibilities of being a board member. So those were two of your questions. I feel like there was one second part to your question that I'm not answering.
Just kind of how decisions are made, or how it functionally works when you're both an employee and a board member.
Yes. So there's one of the things that's kind of on our docket. We're going to work with Katie from Collectivity a little bit on this, but our plan is to continue building out what we call a decision-making matrix, which helps to identify kind of critical or big decisions that either we know are going to be coming up because as an organization, those things like need to happen. So, you know, the budget is a really great example. Taking on new business is another kind of large kind of company-wide decision or something. So identifying like what some of those key decisions might be, or kind of types of decisions that might need to be made, and who would be the decision maker, or what kind of vote you need to have. So is this something where the board needs to vote? Does the entire membership, so all member worker owners, there are kind of what are called general assemblies that are part of our bylaws where all member owners come together. So another example of, and I remember now, one of your questions was like, does the board get elected? Yes. So all worker owners have to vote on the board members. So we did kind of a pre-vote process that led to our current board candidates and board seats. So yeah, we're still kind of, I think there are some things that we are feeling fairly clear about, like this is a board vote versus this is what a worker owner vote is, versus this is just an employee discussion, or to kind of our points about like the teal decision-making model. We make decisions all the time, every day, and who makes those decisions usually is kind of, we center that around like kind of who's most impacted and wants to make the decision. So again, I guess we have some base things to work from, and we'll continue probably building that out really at the end of the day about like what specifically does the board vote about. Anything else that anyone would add from the IG?
If I could ask, you mentioned almost all of the employees decided to become member owners. I'm interested in that process. I work at Designs for Learning, where neighbors of yours on University Avenue, we work with charter schools or maybe similar size. We have 30 some employees, but we looked at the co-op model, briefly considered it, and there didn't seem to be a lot of momentum to move that way, but I gather it was popular, or it was something almost everybody was ready for. I'd be interested to hear about that process, and were there some who were leery about this? Did some people leave because they didn't like this, didn't want to deal with this? It's a kind of a new role that most employees don't have, being an owner of the organization, but interested in that process from whoever wants to speak to that.
Mm-hmm. I'm looking a little bit at Maria and Becky, but I'm trying to remember who all was part of that, like those original conversations for the co-op, specifically to that point. Maria.
I can just start us off. I think one thing to kind of maybe anchor to is that this essentially was Leah's succession plan. So I think it really depends on where an organization is starting from, right? So this wasn't the employees rose up and wanted to take over the organization, which you might find in other places, or a new organization that's trying to study how should we collaborate. But you know, Leah was looking for a way to no longer be the owner and you know, keep the legacy of the improved group alive, and to really have something where the people who have helped build the organization will be able to carry it forward with its mission and values. And so that was like the primary reason for going a co-op route. I think because it was very aligned with our values and the way we are evolving into doing our work together, which is about, you know, shared leadership, self-management, somewhat, you know, I wouldn't say democratic, but the fact that the co-op model is fairly democratic, where we're really looking to not have a hierarchical structure that gives, you know, more power to a certain hierarchy. And so all of those reasons kind of came into play in deciding to go out the co-op model. And we had great partners who helped us figure out if it was feasible. Like we looked at an ESOP, and there was a whole bunch of financial hurdles we would have to overcome to become an ESOP. So we did look at quite a few models, and then bringing it to staff in the very beginning. You know, I think Leah had been talking about this for maybe 5 years. Like at some point, you know, I'm going to be leaving, and how can we plan for this? And so it came to the employees probably about 2 years ago as like, what do you think of this? And so, you know, we got good input. I would say that being evaluators, there was also a lot of questions throughout the entire process, a lot of good analysis about what does this really look like, and how, you know, questions about tax implications, and like, you know, yeah, just a lot of questions. And so we also really had to lean into living with a lot of ambiguity, because we knew we wouldn't have all those questions answered before we became a co-op. And so, you know, I think most of the employees were really kind of like, oh, this looks kind of interesting and fun, and I have a lot of questions. And so I don't think anybody left because of it. I don't think that is the case, but I think it is, you know, also a little bit of a roller coaster for many of us. Like some days it feels totally like this makes sense, and other days are like, wait, what does this mean? How should we do this differently now that we're a co-op? And so we're all experiencing that together, and I'm trying to be pretty open and upfront about where we're at. Please, others, if you have more to add. That's my perspective.
I can share just from the process of, we would work on this transition team as a transition team, and then every month at the staff meeting, share out more broadly updates. And that was also, there was a lot of two-way in those meetings. So as you mentioned, Andrew, like, were people leery? Like, yeah, there was some just like, I felt it too, just like, what does this mean? Like, this is a different role. This is a different relationship with work, that we kind of just process through together and talk about what that means. And then there were things where we would share how we were planning to design membership eligibility or board meetings or all the other components. And we would hear feedback and some concerns about, well, what about this? What about this? And so then we would take that into account, again, as evaluators, and change our design based on that. So while there was the small transition team, we connected with the broader staff regularly, so that when we came to the point earlier this summer, inviting people to buy in, there was nothing new about the design of the co-op. People knew what was going on. So I think that helped allay some of those concerns too.
So everybody buys a membership share, and then when they leave employment, the improved group buys that back, and they're no longer a member. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. I'll take Chris put in the chat wanting to hear more about the by seeking model for decision making. Were there other models that we considered, and like what are some kind of challenges or opportunities? I will preface this by saying that is not like happy for us to talk about that. It is not a co-op specific set of decision-making processes. They can work together, certainly, but you can also be a cooperative and not use this advice-seeking model. So just trying to be clear about that, because that is also something we continue to try and figure out. I'm not sure if actually, maybe I'll see if Marcia, you would like to talk a little bit more about our the advice-seeking model, or actually first, I'm going to say, Becky, can you talk a little bit about, were we considering other models like that, the moment of kind of coming to like Teal, and then Marcia has a lot of in-depth knowledge about this like advice seeking model that could maybe raise the challenges and opportunities.
Yeah, Chris, happy to continue to talk about this. It's very, yeah, a lot to think about here. So just briefly, I don't know that we had been using a mix of models, I would say, kind of heavily consensus on a number of things prior to reading the book Reinventing Organizations, which in part of the strategy for reinventing the organization is rethinking how you do decision making. And so we kind of, and as we saw that, and it appealed to us in a lot of ways, partly because it resonated with kind of values and things that we liked about working at the Improve Group and how we were, that model appealed to us in a number of ways. And with that model came a lot of different ways that your organization can evolve in all the different dimensions, including decision making. So, and for all of those dimensions, I would say that we decided not to like sort of 100% just be like, we're changing, now we're going to work this way, but we are going to kind of chew away at it over time and be like, well, we're here now. When we see like the full on Teal way of doing this would be this way. So let's take some steps in that direction, maybe bigger steps for some things that feel like we could move faster on, other ones where it feels like we needed to lay more groundwork. So so we've been heavily, I would say, a mix of traditional and consensus decision making, and then have been not like as we haven't been 100% on anything from the book Reinventing Organizations, but we've been heading that direction that they had in terms of advice seeking as a mode of decision making. So Marcia, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Becky. So the advice-seeking decision-making process is one of many things that Teal organizations practice. And the sort of larger buckets of those practices are around self-management, wholeness, and what they call evolutionary purpose, which is meaning you're always evolving and growing and listening to what the organization is telling you is the next evolution. So one of the things that Teal calls us to do within those buckets, if you will, is to be less hierarchical and to push decisions to those that are in a position to understand the problem in a deep way or see the problem. So advice seeking, first, there has to be a decider. So unlike consensus, where it's more of a group process, someone will say, I think I can be the decision maker in this, and I might even seek advice about that before I go to the decision. I consult experts, those that will be impacted by the decision I make, and then I form a decision and I say, okay, folks, this is the decision I'm making. What advice do you have before I implement? So it's sort of in our process, a two-step process, seeking expertise, making the decision, and then seeking advice from those most affected. And with a small organization, if it's an organization-wide decision, like getting rid of annual performance reviews and going to a formal feedback process driven by individuals, everybody's going to have a say-so in that decision. But at the end of the day, I take all that information and make the decision. And the real key here is that in consensus, you can get bogged down in non-decisions because you have a few outliers. And that's just the reality of being human. So we need to get over that. And we can't make everybody happy, but we can certainly make decisions that are informed and that people have some sense of a say in that final decision that's made. I'll ask my colleagues to correct me or to more deeply inform what I just said.
That feels good for now. Thanks, Marcia. All right, the next question that we had was how does the profit structure work under the co-op? And I have asked Maria to take that on as someone deeply involved in our financials.
Sure. So I think grounding too, as we're like weighing what's new and different about being a co-op, just grounding everyone in that actually the Improve Group has tended to share out profits through the bonusing kind of avenue over many years. So in a large way, this is not very different from what we've been doing. So there had been a bonus process that was largely based on the the profitability or the anticipated profitability of the organization. And when we discussed becoming a co-op, we acknowledged that there is a process for profit sharing to worker owners, but we also wanted to make room for the process of potentially doing bonusing for all employees. So in other words, there could potentially still be an opportunity to do bonus before profit sharing, if that makes sense, because we've always known that the organization is profitable because of each employee in this organization. So we wanted to be clear about that this wasn't replacing the possibility for bonuses as we've known them in the past. So then in terms of like the structure of profit sharing, it's pretty formulaic in that we will get to the end of the year, we will see what profits we have or don't have, and we'll determine if any of that money needs to stay to be invested in the business, or if all or some of it should be shared out with worker owners. And in the case that we decide to share it out with worker owners, and that would be a decision that would likely go to the board and maybe even the members. It's considered one I guess stock. One owner is one one share, if you will. It's equal share. So there's no different kinds of stock. There's no anyone gets more profit sharing than another person based on position or tenure or anything. If you are a worker owner, you will get the same profit share as each worker owner would get.
With the slight caveat that there is a sort of part-time, if you're a part-time owner or if you're a part-time employee, you would get a shift down in the profit sharing.
It would be
full-time employment
prorated to your part-time
hours. Yep. Thanks, Maria. Darren.
Hi. Yes. First of all, I want to congratulate all of you on making it to the conversion. I know it's a long process and there's a lot that goes into it, and it takes a lot of tenacity and determination to make it to the end. So congratulations, and I hope it works out well for you. I think a lot of my question was about the teal process, and you all explained that really well. And I just wanted to kind of echo it back to see if I'm following along with what you're explaining. And the way I think that Marcia explained it, it sounds to me like it's not a flat structure and not hierarchical, but maybe kind of like a floating hierarchy, where one person will grab onto a decision and be the hierarchy or the decision maker for that, but won't necessarily have that role across the board for all decisions. And then someone else might grab onto another one. I see some nods, so sounds like what it's getting out. Please definitely clarify it if I'm off the mark there. I'm really intrigued by the process, though.
Darren, I hadn't thought of it in quite that way, but you're right. A decider really takes on a lead role for that decision, even wherever they sit in the organization. We've gone to explaining our roles in more of a functional way, rather than you have a CEO and they do X, Y, and Z. We have a management team, we have an ops team, we have the consulting team, and we have a marketing team. And there's porousness between those, but we're more focused on our function and the results of that function than we are on titles and where folks sit. Yeah.
Sure. And so it might be either an individual or a team that takes the responsibility for making those decisions?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh,
matter of fact, we had one this week by one of our committees.
Okay. Great. And then as far as number of workers and number of worker owners, what is your breakdown for that?
I think we have 19
employees and 17 worker owners.
Oh, wow. Okay. And do you have, do you know reasons why the two don't want to be owners? And if that's confidential or you don't want to get into the details, I totally understand that as well.
Yeah, I don't know that there's anything that, meaningful that I could share for their reasons.
Okay. Well, thank you. And I should introduce myself. I'm with the Minnesota Center for Employee Ownership, and we're a nonprofit organization that's advocating and raising awareness about employee ownerships like worker co-ops. And so I was really excited to hear that you guys have transitioned and did it successfully. And so I wanted to be here to meet you all and to lend our support.
Yeah, thank you. Excited to make the connection. All right. The last question I kind of tried to answer seems fairly straightforward, but just for purposes of the recording and just in case you aren't tracking the chat, Matthew asked if Leah retained any ownership or if she sold 100% of the company to the cooperative. She did sell the Improve Group 100% to the cooperative and therefore employees. However, the part of the payment or purchase terms include some payout over time. So we've structured it that while we are still paying her out a portion of the kind of total payment, she will hold a board seat, which then allows her to have one vote as a member owner. Once she is fully paid out, though, she will no longer be a member owner and per our bylaws is not eligible to be a member owner. So she's in some ways like a little bit of an exception to our bylaws because she is not currently an employee. She's no longer an employee at the Improve Group. She has stepped out of her role. Let's see, what other questions do you have?
I just had one observation or just a thought to both kind of going way back to Rachel's question about how does the board work with like members on it, or how does this decision making work with decisions that can come from anywhere in the organization? And I guess the one thing that I'm looking forward to, and is that even though we've been on this reinventing organizations, and our intention is to try to be rooting out hierarchy around that. There's a lot of habits that we all have because that's the world that we live in. So we kind of, even if we don't love the idea, we are often looking for hierarchy or feeling it, even if it's. So I think that I'm just interested to know how we'll grow and change, because we all live in a world that functions a lot around hierarchy. And so I'm excited about some of the things that we've loosened up by becoming a co-op, and hopeful that kind of helps us lean even more into those commitments. So just I don't know, philosophical note about there. There's a lot of things that we can say that we are, you read the book, Reinventing Organizations, you're like, awesome, we're all done with hierarchy. But all these things are really embedded so much in our habits and the ways we think. And it takes a lot of undoing. And that's one of the things I'm excited to kind of all of us together learn more about and experience maybe in a different way.
All right, well, I'll certainly stick around if they're kind of like lingering conversations that you want to have, but if there are no other questions. Thanks for joining us today, and hopefully we'll keep in touch.